Christian Babcock here of the Hunter's Advantage podcast. Today in episode 73, we sit down with Pat Lane for an in-person episode. We talk about South Texas hunting cultures, the large ranches in Texas. We talk about some of his outlaw hunting stories. We discuss his relationship with Charles Beaty, the infamous Prince of Poachers. And we discuss some of his new stories in his book, Before the Stories Are Lost. If you guys are enjoying the content from the channel, make sure to subscribe and turn the bell notifications on because we have a lot more podcast, hunting videos, and reviews coming your way. Let's get into the episode. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us again for Hunter's Advantage podcast, episode number 73. Today, we're joined by Pat Lane. We've been talking for about an hour, but we're finally on the podcast. Thanks for jumping on with me.
I appreciate it very much, Christian. I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah, absolutely. So you were a new acclaimed author. You just wrote a book. I think Charlie's talked about the book in detail, or a little bit of detail, but just kind of a 10,000 foot level. What's the book about for people that are?
Well, like I said, the stories are about my great uncle Zenas, who came there in 1906, and of course they hunted any way they could back then. And all those stories that I've learned from him, and then the guys before me, I just wanted to write them down. Because some of them, I mean, you can't make that stuff up.
Yeah.
Those guys were crazy. And but that was a way of life. So that's what I wanted to do. And then I wanted to be honest. I wanted to give my buddy Charlie some validation. And there's a lot of people read that book of his and say, man, it ain't no way. Well, partner, I was there. I was getting after action reports. I know. At least for his first 5 years. Because, see, I quit in 1983. And then, he had that period where he got married and he straightened his act up and everything. And he went to Mexico, was gone for 3 years and stuff, and come back, and then he started all over again. But I never went in there with him. I couldn't do it. My bunch were meat hunters, and leaving the meeting field I wasn't gonna get it,
Yeah.
And that's just the way I grew up. And so Charlie and I, I never went back in that Kennedy with him. I could have gone every dang time if I wanted to, but I just couldn't get past that, And but we never had a crossword about it. I knew what he was doing, and it was kind of good for me because he's plumb over there on that Kennedy. I knew that Tom East over there was empty. There wasn't anybody over there. And I kept my mouth shut. I didn't talk, And that's the only way you're going to get away with it. You can't be bragging about that stuff. But I want everybody to know that, man, I do not recommend this at all. I mean, this was a long, long time ago. It's half 100 years ago when I landed in that country at 18 years old. And I said it was a way of life then, and back then it was just a game. A fine was less than $100, and it was just the way we got our meat. And there's nothing around you but those great big ranches. You're just right there in the middle of it. So since there was no public land, we kind of figured that was our public land. We went and got our meat out there. And the posse of guys that I run with, all older than me, my father, my stepdaddy and his buddies, Ellis Mayfield, oh my gosh. Crotchiest, meanest little old man you ever saw in your life, half-breed Indian, and God knows how many deer he's killed. He never could satisfy that bloodlust he had. Oh, it was something else. But that's who I learned from. I mean, they were the best. I think I wrote in the book, I said they were tenured road hunting professors. And I rode on it a lot with them because they're too old. They couldn't go jump the fence and do what I could do anymore. But that's where I got my education.
Yeah,
I learned an awful lot from
them. So on the back of the book, I think you say the only way you know how to tell a story is from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I think, a lot of people got a view of kind of the culture and what's kind of going on at this time from Charlie's book, but what was the beginning of these giant ranches in South Texas, the power of them, the politicalness of them? Tell me about the beginning of all those.
Okay. Well, like I said, in the 18th century, it was Spanish. I mean, that's all Spanish land grant. Spain had been over Mexico for 200 or 300 years. And then in 1822 or 1821, that's when the Mexicans finally beat them out and ran the Spanish out. And see, those guys that were in Texas, and some of them had land on both sides of the river. Man, you talk about being alienated. They had nobody. They're on property that either belonged to people that just whipped them, or we got these newcomers coming in trying to take their other stuff, And that's what happened. It was just wide open, and the fact that it was completely lawless. There was no law down there below the Nueces River, not until 1874, when they sent Leander McNally and the Texas Rangers down there. And I kind of allude to it in the book, I mean, who'd they work for? They were working for the King Ranch and those other big ranchers. There was nobody else down there. And there's places all over hidden out there. Christian, I could take you to a ranch about 20 miles outside of Falfurrias. We call it Creek Road. It dead ends in the Mills Bennett. And this ranch just changed hands. And it's Los Compadres, what it used to be. I don't know what they call it now. But in that ranch, there's 5 crypts. Mother, father, 3 children. Above ground, crypts. I mean, these people had a wherewithal. And this was happened all these years ago. It says all killed by Texas Rangers. The whole family was wiped out. And if you listen to the people, Hispanic people down there and telling their stories, that's what it was just taken from them. It's no different than any other place in the world. The strong took it from the weak. There was no law. These guys came in there. They had a plan. And of course, it was Captain King, Mifflin, Kennedy. They didn't get hooked up until in Florida. And that's when they decided they was going to go to Texas. And that was all about the same time that we had the Mexican-American War. Well, that was in 48, 47. They're still fighting us. And it was just an opportunity there for the taking. And that's what they did. History books will tell you they paid 2 cents an acre for that land. A Christian, they had penny candy back then. Those people had been there for 4 generations, for 100 years. And you telling me they took 2 pieces of candy for every acre they had? I don't believe it. It's been sanitized. But I said the strong took it, and that was them. But there was another partner, too. See, there was another partner down there in Brownsville, and he was coordinating all that shipping and stuff. Dude, they were running Confederate cotton into Mexico to help support the Civil War and stuff like that. And it was wide open. Those people sitting on that land, they didn't have nobody to turn to. Spain's across the ocean. They can't help them. Mexico didn't want to help them. And Texas was getting annexed by the United States, and we lost our republic. And it was just chaos, and whoever was the strongest ended up with it.
Yeah.
But the difference between those 2 men was incredible. Because, Captain King, they said he was sold as a slave when he was 9 years old in New York City. Indentured servitude, they called it back then. To a jeweler in Manhattan. And he was there for 2 years until he jumped ship. And he got on a steamship, and he hooked him. Well, they got caught on that ship. And those 2 captains took a liking to him. And he spent the rest of his life on that dang steamships, plowing up those rivers in Alabama and Florida and stuff, moving material, whatever he could, except for 8 months. And that one captain sent him to Connecticut, to his home, and he got 8 months of formal education. That's all Captain King had. So I'm going to call him an entrepreneur. That's getting a little bit out there, okay? But now, Captain Kennedy, on the other side, completely different. The man was born a Quaker in Pennsylvania. He went to college. He taught school before he got into maritime business. But That's as good a partnership you could have had. One was the brains and one was the brawn. I asked the Texas State Historical Society for pictures before I could use them in my book. So, no, you can't use them copyrighted. Well, that aggravates me. You tell them I can't do something because I'll stay up all night some way to figure out how I can. And I found me a character artist. And I showed him a picture of Captain King. I said, use that face and just make him look like a pirate. And that's the picture in the book. Yeah. And then on Mifflin Kennedy, I said, just put Einstein's hair on him because he was the brains. And to prove that, shortly after, the turn of the 20th century, by the 1900s, and people were land poor. They couldn't pay the taxes on the freaking land, and they had so much. And if it hadn't been for Humble Oil come in and found, they'd have cut that place up and sold it piecemeal years and years ago because they couldn't cover the taxes. But not Mifflin Kennedy. Captain King died in 1885. Mifflin Kennedy died in 1895, 10 years later. And he left his family, his heirs, that 440,000-acre ranch, and $50 million in 1895. Now, you imagine that, $50 million in 1895. That's equivalent to $1.67 billion today.
He left that to his heirs.
That's right. His wife, Petra. That's a great story. All of that history's too. Like I was telling you, he came down there. He was a Quaker, but he converted to Catholicism because you had to be Catholic to own land in Texas back then when Mexico was in control over it. Look at all the people that fought in the Alamo and stuff like it. So all of them. David Crockett, Jim Bowie, he converted to Catholicism where he could own land. Stephen F. Austin, all those guys did. And he followed suit. But that man was a businessman. And he knew there was nobody going to get rich raising cattle. But now moving around, that's a pretty good idea. And he built some first railroads. And right before he died, he signed the line of credit for the Aransas San Antonio Railway System, 500 miles, and he wrote the check. He owned that thing. That's a money-making dude. Yeah, he was a businessman. But there's lots of stories in history about his wife and stuff beforehand, because her father, he was the governor of Mexico. He's all of Texas. That was all underneath him. And she was married to a lieutenant in the Army. And they had 8 children. And then he got himself murdered. And there's all kinds of rumors. There's no proof, but there's all kinds of rumors that Mifflin Kennedy was behind that. But then he married her. And Petra, de Laval, was a beautiful woman. And they had 6 more kids. And there was all that, But they've all had terrible things happen in their life, Captain Mifflin Kennedy's oldest son, he was shot dead in Mexico. He was shot by a deputy sheriff. He was sparking his estranged wife, and it cost him his life. They had to go to Mexico to get his body. Mifflin Kennedy watched his adopted son get hung in Mexico. And we talked about Captain King's boy. He died of pneumonia, they said, at 19. It was a rough time. Yeah, it was a rough place.
After posting a bunch of YouTube videos and having the interviews with Charlie and everything up, I can already tell what people are going to ask and what people are going to say about these stories. Where have you done research, or is most of this stuff like anecdotal from people who lived during this time? Is it passed on through
that right
how
there?
How do you know these things? That's the first thing people are going to say.
And that's what I put right in the front of that book. That was the Hornbys and the Culpeppers came from LaGrange, Georgia, and moved there in 1906. Well, great Uncle Zenas and Grandpa Hortons knew people who've been there since the Civil War on both sides of the river. And thing about them, and I know you're strong in your faith. These men were Church of God. And you know what those people are like, Bubba. A woman got too much rouge on in church, that preacher's going to tell her, go wash your face, So telling a lie, they'd go to a drawer and get a butter knife, cut their tongue out first before they do that. And that's where I got them. They told me the stories. That's verbal history. The real history's been sanitized. But the people that live down there, and generations after generations, they know it's the truth. Like I said, I go down there to see my own mama. That's going to be 100 this year. And, they all kind of pat me on the back. Yeah, you finally told a story, Pat, Yeah, well, I just wanted to tell the truth. Just get it out there. And, but like I said, it's not picking on anybody or anything like that. It's just, let's just tell the truth. My daddy taught me one thing. I thought he invented that. He said, nobody's got a good enough memory to be a successful liar. I thought, man, that daddy of mine's smart. Found out he stole that from Mark Twain. But, but I liked it anyway. I mean, it's the truth. I don't know how people telling stories and stuff, and you can't ever repeat it. But no, I've got that word of mouth, from those men, other men like them there that've been there. I've always been, interested in senior citizens because they know things. I want to sit down and probe them and talk to them, and that they're told a lot of the stories to me. Like I said, you're not going to find it in a history book because it's been sanitized. But those people down there know it's the truth. The ones that are old enough to remember. The thing is, we're about all dying off. There's just not many of us left. And I don't plan on my book being a history book, but I know it's in 2 libraries already in South Texas. A customer, Philip Storm, put them in there. It was pretty good. He said, I'm going to give one to the library in Alice. And I said, oh my gosh. But I had a lot of fun writing that book, but I knew if I didn't lay out a little bit of history, how that stuff all came about, it doesn't make a lot of sense, But it was like any other place. It was just wide open, and it was there for the taking. And those 2 guys got the biggest share of the lion's share of the property before the turn of the century. And then it got so bad for those folks after that, they were selling that land off pretty cheap. Here's a perfect example. When they sent Captain Leander McNally below the Nueces River, said, stop all that thieving and stuff going on down there, He basically reported King Ranch. It's all was there, He had a guy with him. And they said he was McNally's bulldog. Well, that's old man Armstrong. He a Texas Ranger. The Armstrong Ranch. That's a famous place, buddy. That's Republican Mecca. I mean, that's where, what was his name? Dick Cheney shot his buddy bird hunting, remember? They had an accident, Yeah. That was on that Armstrong Ranch. Well, that bulldog, Armstrong, that was under McNally, he's the man that captured John Wesley Harding. Yeah, they captured him. He got $4,000 for, John Wesley Harding escaped, but he got to keep the money, and that's how he bought that ranch. And then it's still there today. Like I said, it's Republican Mecca, right across from the Norris. It's part of that oak country that Charlie always talks about that strip runs all the way across, plumb past the Balawarti, almost to Heavenville. There's just a string of oaks all the way through that country. Yeah. Well, where they came from, but that's where they are,
So I think it's interesting. You alluded to it a little bit about the Kennedy and the King and being bought for 2 cents, 2 cents an acre, which is just crazy to even think about. Is that sort of you said it about the corruption? You assume that there's something going on there and why that land was sold so cheap, but is that part of the justification that outlaw hunters or poachers used to hunt those properties because they were obtained in what they thought was an unethical way in the first place?
That's an excellent question, Christian. Yeah. But we did not have much respect for them.
Why is that?
Because we knew how they actually got that land. There's stories of them going to a man that maybe had 4,000 or 5,000 acres. So we're going to make you a deal. we're going to give you $5 an acre. Well, they never heard $5 an acre. $5,000, we'll give you $25,000 cash. God, man, that was like $1 million. And the guys, you bet, I'm here by myself. I ain't got no family. You can have it. Sign the deed, pay him the money. That night, come back, pow, shot him in the head, got the paperwork, got the money back. Then he went and knocked on the neighbor's door and did the same thing. Pretty soon, people just started running, and they just left it. Like I said, they didn't have anybody to support them. There was no law down there. And those Texas Rangers were there for the ranches because that's all was there. They didn't consider them to be part of the state. They were isolated, left over from a time that was, when Spain owned it all. So, no, we didn't have a lot of respect for them, the ranch like that. We figured, it always said in the Constitution of Texas, the Republic, when we were a republic, said the flora and the fauna of the state of Texas belonged to the citizens. It never once said it belongs to the landowner. Well, but see, they changed all that in 1983, and that's when I quit, because I saw the handwriting on the wall. And then they changed that law. It said, no, wherever that deer is standing, it belongs to that landowner. And that's a pretty good source of revenue for them now, And that was a lot of reasons. We just figured they were ours. It wasn't like we were getting theirs. Those were our deer. They just was on their property. And we wanted something to eat. We're going to go get one of them. Yeah. And but it just became a game too. And believe me, those guys enjoyed chasing us too. They really did. I mean, you got King Ranch security and then the game wardens and stuff. But there wasn't any teeth in it. But in 1983, they changed that. Because prior to that, so it's 257 counties, I think, in Texas. 151 of them said game law violations. Well, that's a county affair. Austin, y'all just go away. We'll take care of this ourselves. You've been a bad boy. That'd be $100. Now, don't do that anymore. Okay. And that's what it was. Well, they put teeth in it in 83. And that's when they started bumping it up. See, I quit. Oh, Charlie stayed at 98. Well, by then, it was plumb got serious. They about made it a felony, and now it is a felony. I mean, they put you in prison for what we used to do for fun, just to go out and get some meat. And doesn't make a lot of sense, does it, Christian? Once again, throw away logics, reasoning. You follow the money. Those ranches, they were flush with petroleum money. They had all the money they want. But the cattle business wasn't worth a flip. And it just continually go down. And rather than change, because that's so much of their heritage, that red Santa Gertrudis, boy, that's King Ranch, we invented that thing.
Well, they have pickups about it. It's a whole cultural thing about the King Ranch, about ranching.
The thing is, that running W now, it stands for Wall Street. It ain't got nothing to do with ranching anymore because they're not ranching. I mean, look what they charge to kill one of those deer. You go out there and kill one deer, that same money, you could buy 10 head of steers. And it sure ain't dollar for dollar on the meat there. It's just a sport. It's the people wanting to hunt, and then wanting to kill a big one. And you just got another source of income coming in right there. And that's what they do. The Santa Gertrudis area, they've got big people. Jerry Jones, I think he's got 100,000 acres in there. Peter Holt owns the Spurs, and he's got 50. There's big money people in there, hunting that. But most of the guys that were doing anything, there was nobody doing what Charlie was doing. Most of those guys are road hunting, or like me, when I could go by myself, I didn't have an old timer with me. I jumped that fence in the morning, and I'd rattle me up a deer and kill him, and then I'd spend the day, bone him out, hiding in the shade, get me a nap and everything, and then it got dark, I'd carry that meat out, It just got to be a game, And like I said, we just didn't want to get caught, It wasn't the money, it wasn't that much money, and you wasn't going to jail for it. Yeah. But it was just, it's just your pride, wanting to.
So you in the book you talked about, you take it way back from where Charlie take it. He's talking about I think the main period is the 70s, 80s, and 90s that Charlie's talking about, and you take it all the way back to like 1910, or is in the book.
Oh yeah, that's the first one was Carlisle Knoll.
Yeah, what do you know about the first interaction with people starting to hunt these ranches? Because you talk about the golden rule in the book, is no meat left behind, which is the difference between, and one of the reasons I think everyone gets so angry at Charlie, because he's a trophy hunter. He does it for the sport. And you guys talk about the meat and everything, but in 1910, what is this relationship between outlaws and poachers and the ranch, and kind of how did all that get started? Is it just like, we don't have any public land around here and we're hunters, natural born, and we're going to continue to hunt one way or the other?
People back then had to eat. There's no money. There was no money down there until that oil came about, and the oil didn't get there till after 1915. Yeah, those men they were going to go get some meat to eat. And they didn't care what that fence was all about, That first story I talk about is Carlisle Knoll. He was another one. He was half some kind of Indian. I don't know what he was, but he was an ornery fella, And they decided they was going to make an example out of him. And they caught him coming out with a summer buck on his shoulder. I mean, man's 70 years old. He's carrying a dang buck. He's pretty tough, And they ended up putting him in jail and making an example out of him. And that's when it did. I hate to tell all the book, but, he told him, he said, Bubby, you can't keep me in here forever for killing a deer. And when I get out, I'll kill every Santa Gertrudis bull within rifle shot of the road. And believe me, even on into the 20s, 30s, 40s, there's a gentleman I know real well. His name is Lavoisier Durham, and I'm going to help him with his book. And you want to talk about something exactly opposite? Lavoisier was born on the Norris Division of the King Ranch 78 years ago. His father was the foreman of that ranch for almost 50 years. His grandfather was hired by Captain King. He's been with them all this time. We were talking just the other day, and he said, I can remember Dad telling him that, they catch somebody hunting. He said, well, scare them a little bit, run them off, but don't make them too mad. They'll come back and kill a horse or shoot a cow, something of some value. And that's why I wanted to put that as the first hunting story, because that's what Robert Justice Clayburgh Jr. told that sheriff. He said, Mister, one of my bulls is worth more than a whole ranch full of deer. Give the old man his deer back and leave him alone. He'll kill my bulls, And that was the mentality. And people were just, we're going to get some meat. They pretty much left them alone, And, but if they caught you in there, it's a different story. If they caught you in there, then you were up to whatever they wanted to. And I tell that story, about El Sal's. That means the sauce. And that's down there by Port Mansfield. 1936. Man and his son, they went in there to get some meat, never came out. And the citizens around there were convinced that the, King Ranch fence riders killed him. And they had a mob. Boy, they were going in there. They're going to burn the ranch house down. I mean, they were, And the governor of the state actually sent Texas Rangers down there to ferret the whole thing out, but then never did find anything. And they never did find those men. The father and son.
Yeah.
But now you think about that too. When was this? It was 1936. What was happening in 1936? We're in that dead middle of the Depression, and nobody had nothing. And that's all those people were doing, trying to get some meat to eat. Yeah, it's just a little bit overboard. When I got there in 72, they kind of the Clayburghs put off an air like they were royalty, And, of course, old man Bob Clayburgh had passed. This fellow I just told you about, Lavoisier, he dug the grave for Bob Clayburgh by hand. Oh, he thought the world of that man. But then you had those two about my time. Well, it was B. Johnson and Bobby Shelton. And between the two of them, they owned a quarter of it. But the corporation was being formed, and they were getting it, and they wanted to get nobody on top of that ranch to somebody dislike them. And so those guys got paid off. And they sent Bobby Shelton and B. Johnson packing with $250 million apiece in the early 70s. $250 million. Bobby Shelton bought 4 ranches up around Kerrville, and then 175,000 acres in Bozeman, Montana. You know who owns that ranch now?
Who's that?
Ted Turner. It's Dances with Wolves. No interior fencing, no nothing, just nothing but buffalo. Yeah, it was kind of neat. But both of them died young, way before the time, had alcohol problems and stuff like that. And I was listening to Lavoisier talking about that. He said Mr. Bob was trying his best to raise those kids, but they didn't have any parents. You see, they're half brothers. There was a Claiborne girl, and she married or got pregnant by a cowboy. And that's where B. Johnson came from. Well, then that cowboy got himself killed. And how, nobody knows. There's no records of it, but he got himself killed. And she remarried a doctor from Corpus, Shelton. And then she had Bobby Shelton. Well, then those two got killed in a car wreck. And you got those 2 little boys running around that King Ranch, and they're never been told no, and hell, there's checks in the checkbook. We still got to have money. There's still checks, And they never knew how to manage money or do anything, and they just pissed it all off. It's kind of sad. My sister's family, she married into the Storms. Her father-in-law used to go to that ranch up there every year, and Bobby Shelton helped him with his haying operation and stuff like that. He even stayed on a little bit when Ted Turner took over. After he bought it out. My nephews have been up there. I never have, but they say it's quite the place.
Who did you learn this from? I've read the book, so I understand this, but I want to give the listener a little bit of a sneak peek into how this culture of just going and getting meat, treating the King, the Kennedy, the East, all like a grocery store. Where did you learn that, and kind of how is that passed along to each generation?
That was from my stepdaddy, Wayne. Like I said, I come back from California. I was 18 years old, and I was in a bad way. I mean, I was cut from the appetite, and I had 117 and some stitches in me. And I laid on my mother's couch for about 2 months, trying to heal up. They should have gave me some blood out in California, and they didn't. But every day, Wayne come over. And they weren't married yet, And I just took a liking to this guy. Well, he liked to hunt and fish. Good grief, man. And that's what we talk about, And I got to knowing all those guys that I was going to hunt with someday, sitting there on that couch, him telling me those stories. Well, that's what we do. Man, I got to do this. I'm going to do this. Because I was one of those kids that I was never afraid of nothing. I want to go give it a try, So it was Wayne, But then his uncle, Zenas, guy, he became my Daniel Boone because I heard so many stories about him. Man, when I finally got to meet Zenas for the first time, man, I thought I was in the presence of something, because this guy had done it. Out of all the deer I have seen in my life, that man had the best the 10 heads that he kept in his house. I've never seen anything like it. There's not even close. But you got to understand, he started hunting about 1912. He's got an 8-point. That thing looks like an elk. It's that heavy all the way through. And he got one too. I used to call it the hand deer. The G3 comes up, and dude, the end of it, just like a hand. With the hook, the thumb coming back. There's 5 hickeys coming off that one tine. Just massive animals. And he killed them all right back there and jumping off over the Canales fence and into the, but he, same way. He'd go in, in the morning, dark, and leaving dark, He didn't spend the night, not like Charlie. Not like Charlie. None of us did that. We just stood back and watched. When I got to knowing him and I knew what he was doing, I just was going, dow, Bo. just go on and see what you can do, And And he showed me an awful lot, but I just never would go with him, Now, we hunted a lot of places together. Bird hunted, fished. We had some fishing. We had a good time, But I was drawn to him because of his talent, his art. It's just like I said, he's the best taxidermist I've ever seen. When I was a little kid, I was born in West Texas, a little town outside of Lubbock, called Levelland. Mama loves to tell a story. Says the only store in town they'd have to worry about me. I was 4 years old. We walk in that hardware store, and they just turned me loose. Because on one side of that thing was lined up with nothing but North American shoulder mounts. Elk, moose, everything. Other side was Africa, But at the back of that place, in a big glass box about 14 foot tall, was a polar bear standing. And when they were ready to go, they'd find me. My mouth open. I'd be right there looking at that polar bear, So ever since I was a little bitty kid, I just loved that stuff. I loved taxidermy and, I've always thought I wanted to do it, I ain't got no talent. And then I met Charlie, and that's what drew me to him. Because he's an amazing artist, just amazing, He could have done anything he wanted. But I like him in that medium in taxidermy. Yeah. He's very good. He's given me a lot more than I've ever given him.
Yeah. That's for sure. I mean, I think it's interesting. I've got a lot of I've noticed when I talk to older folks, you and Charlie in particular, and even some people that I know back at home, they talk about poaching through a different lens than how we view it today. We view it today almost as like this massive travesty against humanity or some, and I agree. It should probably be looked at in that way. But why do you think back in the day it wasn't looked at this way? Because I want to set it up for the viewer who's grown up with the trail cams, the cell cams, all these sorts of things. Why was it looked at this different way? You guys almost viewed it through a lens of how a Native American would view like a white man coming and stealing their land. Like I'm going to do whatever I want.
Oh yeah, well, like I said, we were Texans.
Yeah,
we believed in the Republic. It said it was ours. It wasn't theirs. But it's also you're a lot younger than me. I'm 67 years old.
Yeah.
And see, in 1983, when they passed the Wildlife Conservation Act, they did something else at the same time. And they were smart. And what they were doing, they were controlling the narrative. You ever heard that today?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what they did with Operation Game Thief. They controlled the narrative. They blew it out on the airways. They had billboard signs. Oh, them outlaw hunters, call them and turn them in. We'll pay you money. Well, that's what they were doing, because they were controlling the narrative. Did those outlaws riding that little bitty road around 400,000 acres, you think they were hurting a deer population? There's more deer down there now than there ever was. It wasn't that. They couldn't grow cattle, and they needed another source of income. Follow the money. And that's why they turned the whole world against us. And all we were meat hunters. We were just like our dadgum families were 200 years ago. We just went out to go get some meat. And they turned it into a crime of the century. Because, like I said, one deer is worth 10 cows. And when you're trying to pay taxes and stuff, I guess it's one way to pay them, Yeah. But that happened all the same time. Operation Game Thief, when they came out with that. It was smart. They had this thing figured out. And so most of the people that are left, except us old guys, like y'all, you grew up knowing that, that's against the law. What are they doing that stuff for? Well, it really wasn't. It really wasn't until 1983. It was just a dang game, And August Timmerman lived right across the street from my mother and dad. He's King Ranch Security, Encino Division. He'd be looking at the door at me, and he's always peering at me. But he, like I said, they wanted to catch me, But we were just meat hunting. Of course, believe me, we're going to kill the biggest one we can find. Yeah. You know, I mean, if a deer wasn't, if he wasn't 20 inches and 10 points or better, we weren't going to shoot that deer. Just let him go, because there's the bigger ones out there, Kind of had you picked. In those days, in the early 70s, they really wasn't hardly allowing anybody to hunt. In the Kennedy, nobody hunted. Just nobody hunted that. Or the East. And but that stuff just didn't get touched. Tom wouldn't permit it. He wouldn't permit anybody killing deer. And that's the biggest secret in South Texas, how he ended up with all the surface rights over the Kennedy. Because everybody's heard Charlie telling them stories about them getting the helicopters up on him and chasing him down, Tom East. Well, Sarita Kennedy East is not his mother. There is no line of kinship between them. She married a man, his name was Alexander East, who was a fruit peddler. Yeah, he had wagon train coming up out of the valley, going to Corpus and Aransas Pass. And there wasn't no 77 then. You look at my map, so you went right through that Kennedy Ranch. Well, obviously, that's where he met Sarita Kennedy. And they got married. My grandfather and my great-uncle Zenas, they referred to the man as Happy. Everybody called him Happy East. Yeah, he went from being a fruit peddler to a very wealthy man. I'd make me pretty happy too, But there's no kinship there. None. And if it's the biggest secret in that country, but they're not related. Not claimed anyway. Because like I said, his dad was Tom T. Sr., who married a Clayburgh girl in 1915. And that's how he acquired all that land there.
So was there ever a time where permission was asked for these people to hunt? Like, have you ever heard of people asking the owner of the Kennedy and the King and the East? I mean, I'm sure there has to have been some time where this all started where there's a denial of, no, you can't hunt. Because I've talked to people and, talking about even in the 80s of my uncle, you could go hunt anywhere you wanted. All you got to do was let the guy know. Mm-hmm. It wasn't can I hunt? It's, I'm going to be in here. Don't shoot me. I'm going to be in this place. And that's kind of just how it was. Mm-hmm. Was that how it was there?
Not on those big ranches.
Why is that?
It was theirs. They were royalty. They were landowners. They were massive landowners. You stay off my property. King by God Ranch, So the locals you just went about business like we always did, Meat's getting low in the freezer. Well, let's go get one. We just go get us one,
There wasn't any other properties to hunt? Like no one else was a landowner in those areas?
Oh, yeah, but you got to get west of 281 and all those little places and stuff out there. People go down there and lease them things and never see a deer. And most of them been shot out. You find foot tracks, and look at them closer. They're goats. They're not dadgum deer. They were bad about baiting a place before they'd lease it.
Yeah.
It's just, it was, you wasn't going to kill a quality deer that you got there, but you got this massive ranch. It's just, those deer grew up and died, never saw a person, And, it was there. It was just there, and that's what we did, And Wayne and them guys, they'd been doing it forever. And, but that's how they lived, that's how they ate. And, now, Grandpa Hornsby, he didn't much appreciate that, Of course, Uncle Zenas, he was outlaw too, he jumped that fence. See, he was a taxidermist too. And one of the many things that he did. But it was just different time, man. The mindset we have today, it just wasn't there then, you think about that, there's just huge ranches and people live there trying to make a living around there someplace, and you get hungry, you kill something,
I think it's important to recognize too that as humans, we're always going to butt right up to what's legal, right, and even go over that line, and it's just a constant battle of risk versus reward, right? Like if we made where it was $100 fine to sell heroin today, everybody would start selling it. I'll pay the $100, you know, because the reward is so high and the risk is so low. And that's how I've seen you talk about it. That's how I've seen Charlie talk about it. I mean, think about if we reverted to those laws now. If we said, if you poach a deer, you're going to get a $100 fine. You'd see guns hanging out the window.
Oh, yeah.
On every public piece. On on everything. And it's just so hard to fathom that as someone that's grown up. You're talking about all these laws have been in place a decade or 2 decades before I was even born.
Exactly.
And I just think it's not realistic to think as humans we're not going to, if the reward is high and the risk is so low, that we're not going to do those things. I think that's kind of ridiculous for people to think about.
I tell you what, when I was a young man, teenager, 70s, a man did what he thought he was big enough to get away with. I mean, that's just the way it was. And I'll tell you another thing. Man didn't walk up to another man and give him his opinion about what he was doing and maybe tell him he shouldn't be doing that. Partner, that's the best way I know of to get knocked on your butt. I mean, they hit you right there for that. And when I was a young man, I seen that happen. The old boy on the ground, he'd go, you know, mister, I was out of line, and I want to apologize to you. And he'd stick his hand out and shake his hand. And I said, I should have kept my mouth shut and walk away. And that was all it was said. Well, see, the world hasn't changed, Christian. The people have. Now they call that felony assault. You can't even correct unwanted behavior. And that was hard on me in the 70s because, Bubba, I kind of like to scrap. You know? I enjoyed it. Man likes to do what he was good at.
Yeah.
But, yeah, the people are changing a lot, you know. And there have to. There's more of us. And what we did, you couldn't do it now. It's just totally impossible. And I don't recommend anybody ever go out there and try to do that because you're going to get in bad trouble. But think about it. There were no cell phones. There was no technology like that. About the only thing the ranch would do is put a plane up high above the Santa Gertrudis so they could watch 4 roads. They could see somebody with a spotlight or something. And then radio down to the game warden or ranch security and go get after them. That's about all you had. Now, man, they got motion sensors. They got night vision goggles. They got whatever an outlaw could think of to use. Guess what? Those landowners, they got them too. It's just over with. And I'm glad. I mean, I was fortunate that I got a decade of it. And I had a time of my life, and I'll never forget it as long as I live. And I even got to write some stories about it, you know, kind of keep my little legacy. But it was a completely different time. There's too much traffic on the road now to hunt from the road. And the way I like to hunt, you know, jumping in now, that's spook. Because I'm telling you, they've got motion sensors and everything else. And look what's going on in that country right now. You know, with all these illegals coming across. I mean, my mama lives in Foul Furious. There's tractor trailers full of dead bodies in them right now that they found out there. Oh, they're finding them all the time. It's a tough country. I mean, they run out of water, they get dehydrated, and they just die right there, you know. So all those technology and stuff that's available today, they're using it. Believe me, they're using it. That guy ain't got a chance to do what we were doing back then, you know. Yeah. And now I said, just let it. That's what I said in my opening. I said, just let it go, man, please. It was fun. I want to tell you about it, you know. It wasn't like we meant ill content or, you know, it just like it was all right. I'm going to go get something to eat, you know, go get me some meat, you know. Yeah. But like I said, we wanted to kill the biggest ones we could kill too, you know. That was but you had a good choice there. There was a lot, you know, those deer live 4.5, 5.5, 6.5 years, you know. They don't get shot at, you know.
Yeah, and I think it's important to say that even though the reward's high and the risk low, it still doesn't make it right that you guys were doing it in any sort of way. But I don't really think that's what you guys are trying to say. You're not trying to say it was the right thing to do. It's just the way it was.
It's the way it was a way of life, buddy.
Yeah.
That you can go down there. There's lots of old timers down there, and they said, "Man, that's just the way we lived." You know, I mean, we didn't have a lot of money, you know, and go get your meat for a bullet and gasoline was 20 cents a gallon. Well, hell yeah, let's go do that, you know. It just made good fiscal sense. You know, it wasn't like we're out fighting a little private war or nothing like that, you know. Except I did get a little bit ornery at Bobby Shelton, but when I was hanging hides on the fence and sticking heads in his mailbox and stuff like that. You know, the funny thing is, never laid eyes on that man in my life.
Really?
Never did. But he done something, and I tell that story in that book about when they sprayed that stuff all over them farmers. Man, that hit me hard. And there's a man still alive down there. I'd love to have him on one of these shows. He is a hoot. And he told me that story, what Bobby Shelton said that day. Man, it just set me off. Like I said, in those days, I was kind of in a bad place. You know, I was trying to make my way. I didn't really have a father figure and stuff. I didn't have nobody to catch me. So I had to suck it up and get tough. Right. And Wayne, of course, I ended up working with him. Well, we hunted together. I mean, he became my stepfather. That man taught me more than any one human being on this planet. And I mean, not just hunting, the work. The man could weld. He's a machinist. He could cut threads where most people couldn't drag a rope. You know, he had inventions. He had patents. He invented a tilted boat trailer. I mean, the guy he's a mechanical genius. And that's where I learned a lot from that man, working with him, you know. And so I owe him a lot, you know. But it'd been like that all his life, and I figured, well, that's just kind of what we're supposed to do here, you know. And that's what we did, you know. Didn't think about it being, you know, against the law terrible like it is now. I mean, the threat of going to prison, I mean, I can't imagine somebody go out there trying to kill a deer with that hanging over their head. I mean, it's just not worth it. I mean, it's just not worth it, you know.
Right.
And like I said, that's why I like to watch you guys the public land hunt and stuff. Right. Like I said, y'all keeping it real, man. You know, and that's because sitting in a box with a high-powered rifle, watching the feeder go off. Man, I'd rather sit in the backyard and watch the grass grow. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Now, and of course, I don't hunt with a firearm anymore at all. You know, if I ever kill another big game animal, it'll be with a bow, or I won't do it. You know, it's just a challenge. You know, something different. You know? Right. I'm just not mad at those deer anymore. You know, and the way it costs now, I'd rather go get me an axis deer. They eat better. You know, they eat a lot better. That's more like elk or red deer. You know. Yeah. But,
can you talk a little bit about some of the interactions you guys had with some of the actual ranch owners? I mean, I think we were talking earlier, you were saying Tom East talked to your stepdad at one point about you. And the way that you guys talk about it's so interesting because it's not an anger, or it might be a little bit, but it just seems more matter of fact as in you're doing this and I'd just like you to stop. It's not like I'm going to go get the cops. I'm not going to go get the Rangers. It seems like people handled it like man to man. It was like a personal issue with each other. It wasn't a law issue with the law.
Yeah, it was. You know, when like Wayne and Tom East had known each other forever. And of course, Tom knew Wayne, you know, outlaw deer hunting. But when he caught me, seeing me down there, you know, he thought, well, my God, my relationship with Wayne, I can go tell him and he'll keep that boy from going down there. You know, and it was, like you're saying, more of a man-to-man thing. People used to just look at each other in the eye and ask them, you know, and then that was it, you know. Like I said, you wasn't talking behind people's backs, but that particular time in my life I was not in a good place. And I'm telling you, if he'd been younger, I'd have took him to Gert right there. I can remember a time when his son came in, and that man's Lord God Almighty over that thing now, Mike East. And man, that boy, he'd stand behind his dad. He never said a word. Head down like that. That guy was a little bit strange. Tom was just a little bit out there. You know, he's different. But, no, it was more personable, you know. And But it's just, he just had this thing that he didn't want anybody killing deer. He just liked them, I guess. And he owned all that land, and he figured, by God, they're all mine, and ain't nobody gonna kill them. And, but we still got a few of them.
Yeah.
Not a lot. But that country, Charlie and a lot of those boys would stay away from that country because you didn't have an oak canopy to cover. But I had worked back in that ranch. I'd been back in there pretty deep. I'm doing work, and welding work and stuff like that. I had my eyes open. I was checking out where I could go in there. I knew where I could go. Yeah. And then I had a good buddy of mine flew me over it. And, man, that was when I mapped it out in my head. Then I knew where one mott was, and I could get to another one and figure out how to get there without being seen. Of course, in my days, is even before Charlie like that, it was, wasn't that many airplanes up and stuff. You listen, you could hear them, get hid, It wasn't near as hard. And that's how come they stayed over there in that Kennedy. And he'll tell stories about going over there to Robert East. I don't think he'll jump Robert East anymore. That's Tommy's brother.
Okay.
And now, see, that's all together. It's all called the East Foundation. Those people keep their heads down. You don't see them much, But they're just as much kin to the King Ranch as anybody else. Yeah. Because his wife was a Clayburgh. It's really, you're almost 2 million acres there. You get it all together, But, we just didn't, it was not thought of like it is today. Yeah. And you're right. If people were doing it today, well, there wouldn't be the critters. Believe me, they'd kill them out, But the chances of getting away with it would be impossible. It was just much more wide open. Man. We're talking about 100 years ago. That's a long time.
Yeah, it is.
A lot of things have changed since then, I would have never thought it, but it has.
Is that part of the fun in the game of doing this road hunting, this outlaw hunting, is knowing that I can go shoot this deer, take it to my house, and see the guy who I just shot it off of at the grocery store while I'm getting gas? Is that part of it, or
nah? Because like I said, you wouldn't see a Clayburgh.
Really?
The only one you'd ever see is T.O. Every once in a while, strutting down the street. He's a little bitty thing too. He got them boots on, plumb up to his knees, britches legs stuck in. He got about a 2-pound mustache, stick out like that. And he walked around Kingsville like he was royalty and stuff, And he probably figured he was going to end up being the hook and bull. But in 1998, they sent him out. They didn't want a central Clayburgh figure over the corporation. Like I said, it's Wall Street now, and it's just big business. It's not a cattle ranch anymore like that. I mean, there's cattle out there. I saw something the other day, and I had to ask somebody about it. Because I'd been down there about 3 months ago. I never saw a cow. Never saw one. And the last trip I went down there, I seen some cows by the airport, which is on 141. The airport, which is the King Ranch Airport, it's a private airport. And man, there was 15, 20 head. And I was looking at those guys, and man, they're slick looking. And a little bit different red in them. They didn't look exactly, and they were muscled, looked pretty good. Well, I asked an old boy that knows about that stuff. He goes, well, what they're doing now is they're putting red Angus bulls in there and crossing them. They want to keep that color as close because that's a part of their image, that
their
King
brand.
Their image, But they know they could get those cattle to grade a little bit better if they get some Angus in them. And that's what they're doing there, It's kind of interesting. Yeah. They're not going to give up on it, but they're just not. It's not the money maker that the turf grass and the petroleum and all that stuff is, and the investments they have. That's what Bob Clayburgh did for years. We was talking about those boys when they were growing up, didn't have parents. He was all over the world, literally buying land in Australia, everywhere. Invested money. He was quite the businessman. He was trying to set a path for his all his family and stuff, and keep that place going. And he probably did more than any of them, But when he passed, it like I said, it just became a big battle, and they're going to fight who's going to be on top, And That's when the corporation just took over. And I imagine that's probably what's going on in the East. You know, they've probably got somebody running the business end of that. And you get that flush with petroleum money, you know. I mean, pretty much, it's not like you got to get up and worry about what you're going to do today, you know.
Yeah, that makes sense. I thought it was really interesting that you had a lot of like Spanish influence in the book. You actually used a little bit of Spanish terminology in some of the titles and some of the words in the book. Was that just kind of to pay homage to that part of the country and then the Mexican and the Spanish influence?
Since the 18th century, that'd been the language there.
Yeah.
Spanish was the language in that country. Yeah, it's out of respect to those people. You know, dadgum right. You know, of course I speak a little Spanish. I'm pretty good. You know, I've heard it all my life. But no, that was the language that was spoken there. And so I wanted to just flavor the book a little bit like that. And the story of Uncle Zenas, you know, when he saw that first drilling rig being built. Mm-hmm. And that's why I call that story what I did. Enfermo de mi estómago. I was sick at my stomach. That's what that meant. It made him sick. He knew that pristine wilderness he'd been hunting all those years gone. Just, you know, man, it just made him sick, you know. And it's just out of respect, those people. But that was the language was there.
Right.
Guess what? It's still pretty much the language that's there. Because there's probably 95% Hispanic people down there still, you know. And like I said, we didn't separate like they do in some places and stuff, you know. And I'm not a color person. Yeah. I'm just so done with that calling people colors. We're not crayons. You know, we're human beings. And so I try to avoid saying that, you know. I'll refer to people of Spanish descent like that as Hispanic or something like that. And the black folks, I ain't gonna use a color. They're of African descent. You know, I mean, we're still all human beings. Hell, I'm the biggest mixed up. What am I? I'm Irish and German and Dutch and who knows what I am. I probably couldn't even trace myself. I'm a bigger mutt than they are, you know. So, I mean, who gives me the right to? But I just wish we'd all get away from that color stuff and just be humans and treat each other like you like to be treated, you know. And
it's a pretty good rule.
Dang, it works every time.
Yeah.
Works every time, you know.
So we've talked a lot about South Texas history. When did you actually get into the road hunting and the implementing the golden rule and all that stuff? Can you talk about your first time getting into this?
Oh yeah. Well, I said it was 1972. I got out of high school, went to California, then got cut, had to come back, heal up, and Wayne been telling me all those stories, and man, it's time for me to do this, you know. So we made a little road trip, went south of town, and I killed my first buck. And I was talking to about my brother-in-law and my sister, because guess what? My mama and my sister, they were in the car to pick me up when I picked my buck up. My brother-in-law jumped fence with me.
Family affair.
Family affair. And I had gone through some dang cactus, and I had my blue jeans just pinned to me. I mean, my sister pulled cactus out of me at night. But that was the first one, you know. And once I did that, man, I said, I can do this, you know. But like I said, it was fun because I could hunt with them old timers. But man, I wanted to go over that fence. I wanted to get on foot, you know. But Wayne had taught me how to rattle them horns. I'd listen to Zenas talk about it, you know. Man, Indians been doing that for hundreds of years, you know. But see, we always hunt critters during their breeding season, you know. And truth be known, that's not the best time to eat them. A fat summer buck about into August, boy, it's hard to beat one of them. They're good. They got that tallow about that thick all over them. That same way turkeys. You know, turkey hunt's not big in South Texas. We're loaded with the turkeys. They just don't do it like they do in the East. And that's a lot of fun. I've done that. I've called them birds up. Man, that's a rush. You know, I could really get addicted to that. Guess what? That's a bad time to eat turkeys too. They done rutted and all that fat in their breast is turned to pus and jelly, and shoot one in the dang fall, he'll beat a lot better, I promise you. But that's that meat eater thing in me, you know.
Right.
And we just took advantage when we had the opportunity. You know, that's all it was. But during the hunting season, you know, then it was game on, you know. Okay, you ready? Let's go for another season, you know. So get out there and get with them again, you know. And we'd team up. Oh, we give those guys terror. There might be a game warden out there like that. We did this one time, and this old boy, he's serious, man, too. And Tommy's brought him in here. This man was a manhunter. He wasn't a game warden. He was a manhunter. His name was Nelson Sharp. Boy, he had a lot of people scared because this guy, he hunted people down. And he got down there watching Tom's. Tom hired him. And, man, he kept us off that road. The old timers, and they couldn't go down there. And one of them had the idea. I don't know if it was Wilford or which one of them said, this is what we're going to do. And we went down there one day. He's sitting on the side of the road in his pickup, you know, keep an eye on the road. 3 carloads of us pulled up, 2 in each car. We pulled up right behind him. Sat there for a second. He's looking at us like that. And then one of us sat, one of them went north, the other one went south. And he just said, we just sat there on him. What you going to do, Nelson? Who you going to follow? Because one you ain't going to follow is going to go kill a deer. You know? See what I mean? It was just a game. He was going to figure out a way to do it, you know. Oh, he got mad, too. I thought I told you about Norman. That was pretty funny. I got a special order for a book, you know, a priority, had to have it quick. And it was Evelyn Anthony in Falfears, Texas. And I called Brian. I said, Brian, is that Norman Anthony's wife? Who was a game warden down there? He said, oh, yeah, that's his wife. He said his daughter was in here just a couple days ago and bought your book. I said, dang, I mean, you know, Norman's chased me before. But I had kind of quit before he really come on, you know. And big old man. He came in there a few days later, and he told Brian he'd read the book. He said, yeah, that's the way it used to be. He said, it sure ain't like that now.
Yeah.
But it was just a game back then, you know. I was just lucky. Landed in the right place, the right time. Got to do it, you know. I got it out of my system. I don't care if I ever kill another deer. It doesn't matter to me. If I do, I want to kill one on my family's place in Coffeyville, Kansas. I'd like to do that.
Yeah.
You can bow kill a deer right there on the old home place. Other than that, I still got a bad want to run an arrow through a Cape buffalo. Ooh. But I want him to be wild. I don't want him to be in a dang fence pinned in there. If he ain't wild, I don't want to hunt him. You know, that's what aggravates me the most. It just. I started going back down home. Of course, I was out of Texas for so many years, chasing rainbows as in Augusta and then South Carolina. And I told the wife and the girls, said, I got to go home. I'm homesick. I'm from Texas. Got back down there to go see my mama. And the first time I went down there and I seen them ranches, them high fences, oh, man, it just made me sick. You know, that just ain't right. And it's costing them now. Look what's happening. They're having bad cases of that chronic, you know.
CWD?
Yep.
Or EHD.
High fence. I read an article the other day about old boy had to put down what do you call it? It's a $250,000 breeder buck. Because he had that, you know, chronic waste disease. You're not supposed to hem them up like that. They're wild animals.
Yeah.
And people pay that kind of money, and it's a ridiculous amount. Oh, yeah, they'll pay $20,000, $30,000 for some of those pen-raised quails with the horns stowed everywhere like that. Who would want that on their wall? It's not real. It don't even look right. And besides, you drive in that high fence, hell, that buck will probably follow the truck because he knows you're going to feed him. You know? I mean, I ain't hunting, you know? That's why I said you guys that bow hunt, that hunt public land, that get out there and work at it, you know, my hat's off to y'all, man. I mean, y'all are doing the real deal, you know? And if I was younger again, wanting to hunt again, that's exactly what I'd do.
Right.
I'd just go someplace where I could had all the country I wanted to go in and just get after it, you know. because I don't care about sitting in a box.
Well, it's weird because I grew up in Oklahoma and I'd heard about high fences, but where I grew up, no one has enough money to put up a high fence if they wanted to. There'd be no money in it. No one's gonna have money to even come pay to hunt those deer. And it's just weird because I get down here and the first question I always hear is when someone shoots a really big deer, I always have to ask high fence or low fence. And it's such a weird thing. Like, I'll see it all the time. People are like, I shot the biggest buck of my life, and I have to ask high fence or low fence. And they're like, oh, it was on a high fence. And I'm like, okay. It's a weird question that you even have to ask. It's just a culture of high fence and exotics. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. You can do whatever you want. It's a free country.
Yeah, that's the way I feel. But it's not something I want. I wouldn't give you 10 cents for it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put it on my wall. I'm just sorry, I wouldn't, But people are willing to pay it. And it's, capitalism, it's a market-driven thing. If they'll pay $10,000, it's about $10,000 a mile for that fence.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, about $10,000 a mile. Yeah, they get expensive. That's good flat ground. You start going up them hills and stuff, it gets higher than that, But there wasn't that. The King Ranch was high fenced already. What the hell they want to? There's so much country behind them. Why would they want to jump the fence and run the road? We didn't see deer on the road much. You just didn't see them like you do up on 6 in Central Texas and stuff. Not down there. They just turn around and go back where they came from.
Yeah.
That's what deer do anyway when they get spooked or anything else. When they get shot. I was teaching that to my grandson the other day. I said, you shoot that deer, because he's been taught to shoot behind the shoulder and everything. I said, he's going to turn around and go right back where he came from. Why does he do that, Pawpaw? I said, because nothing hurt him back there. He's hurt now, and he's going to go back where he knew he didn't get hurt. They're not smart. They don't reason. They just react, But you learn animals the way they are, and I've never had a problem losing a deer. I could always find them. But, of course, we didn't shoot back there like that. You shoot from the road, you shoot them in the neck, drop them right there, because you got to be able to find them. You can't let them run off and stuff like that. That was fun. Fred and I used to do that. That was fun. Just trying to come up with something different. We go out at night, and this was before season, so like October. Them bucks still all ganged up. We'd spotlight about 5 of them. Okay, there they are. Well, we get somebody else drive and drop us off downwind, and we walk up. I walk up with my bow, and Fred's got a flashlight. We creep up on them deer at night like that. Don't light them. It's just something different, just a challenge. Then I discovered hunting on moonlit nights. Don't have to have a light.
You already see.
Oh, yeah. I get somebody to drop me off, and I go out there a couple of miles, rattle horns. My eyes get used to that light, sit there at that bow. Yeah, you can lace it.
Deer actually fight at night already? They'll throw down at night?
Oh, yeah, they come to them horns. Of course they will. No, yeah, they hear that. Yeah, even does. I've seen nail guy come to horns. Yeah, a lot of people, animals curious, what's that going on? So like I was telling you, that big one though, Charlie give that away. That big one, he gonna circle you, buddy. He gonna go around and get downwind of you. Oh, I don't smell right, because they didn't get big being dumb. When they get big like that, they seem like they get a little education. But, yeah. Yeah, Fred and I did that a couple times. I thought that was kind of fun. Just something else to do, Not a lot to do down there, You entertain yourself,
Was there much bow hunting down there?
Man,
Or is it tough bow hunting country just in general?
Well, it is, because you're not going to be able to get a tree stand, like you can use a tree climber or something, because there are no straight trunk trees down there, But I liked hunting on the ground, and I'd back myself up the thicket where I knew I had the breeze, and I knew they weren't coming this way, and rattle them up, But I bow hunted a little bit, and I imagine those guys, Charlie probably did more than I did.
Yeah.
Because he was going in there for staying days and days at a time, and just, and he'd have both.
His bow and his rifle?
Sure. That 708 of his.
Yeah, that's...
That's something I'd love to give her a plug right now when we're talking about it. You see those pictures?
Yeah, these are some really cool pictures.
Now, you ain't going to believe this.
What's that?
I had to wait till June until my artist got out of middle school. That girl is 13 years old that made those drawings and the covers of that book.
No, she's not.
She's 13, Anastasia Gonzalez, princess. She is so freaking talented, it scares you.
Yeah.
And her mother and dad, and of course we're friends, but her mother worked with my wife for a period of time, and that's how we got to know him. I've known Anastasia since she was a baby. And when I told him I was looking for somebody to illustrate it, her mother said, "Well, I bet you Anastasia would do it." Well, she's a little Hispanic girl. She's not of age yet, So I want my wife to go over there with me,
Yeah.
And I'd sit down, I'd tell her a story, and then she'd draw a picture and send it to me. And it was that kind of like what you were thinking. I said, it doesn't matter. You're the artist. That's what you saw. You heard my story and you drew it, and that's perfect. And I'm putting it in the book.
Yeah.
Because we didn't take pictures back then,
Yeah.
And they just didn't. But that's, she's a special gal. The world has not heard all they're going to hear from her yet. Yeah. She is amazing.
That's pretty awesome. I mean, so if you guys didn't take much pictures, how did Charlie get all these old pictures? Was that something he made sure to do?
And a lot of that, because I quit in 83.
Yeah.
Okay, Charlie got there in 76, 77. Mm-hmm. So we only really had about 5 years together. And then I got married and I was gone, And after that, I guess they started taking cameras with us and everything. He took cameras back in there, but it was a lot of times he didn't, and he wished he had. But, he's got a bunch of them. He's got a bunch of pictures, but they always took cameras and stuff. We did. Because we didn't tell anybody what we were doing.
Yeah.
We just keep our mouth shut. That was one of the first things Uncle Zenas told us. He said, if you want to do this, he said, just keep your mouth shut and you can do it from now on.
Right.
You go bragging about it, and somebody's going to get after you, So I just learned to keep my mouth shut.
That's interesting you say that, because we have a guy that we hunt antelope with in the panhandle of Oklahoma. He's got this ranch that's been passed down 3, 4, 5 generations since the land, before Oklahoma was a state. And we go out there and every year or two and we'll antelope hunt with him, bow hunt. It's 85,000 acres. And he said, you keep this between us, we can do this forever. He said, you tell somebody else, this stops. Mm-hmm. And I was like, huh. And every time I talk about antelope hunting, it's like, oh, how much did it cost? Let me come hunt with you guys. And I'm like, I can't. Nobody even knows this guy's name. Mm-hmm. It's just every time I can't text him. Every time I talk to him, he calls me on the phone. It's just different.
Yeah.
It's just a different method of operation, and he's an old dude himself, but it's kind of cool how that works. Keep it to yourself.
I know some fellas up in Panhandle, big landowner up there, and no man, he worked on that ranch for many, many years. And the man that owned that ranch is always about May. He'd say, go kill me an antelope. He wanted some fresh antelope meat, but he was going to wait till they were good to eat again, Right. And they had lots of country up there. I don't know how many. That one place is 300 sections, so it's pretty good size. Yeah, but it's pretty sparse country too. Yeah, run about one cow to 50 acres.
Yeah,
they get dirt in their lungs trying to eat that grass right off the dirt. Right. That's hard country. It is. Them boys in the panhandle, they're some tough ones. That wind blows, whew. And you know how it is. Any given day in September or May, it could be 100 degrees or it could snow. And I've seen it. It'll change just like that up there. Because people don't realize up around there, you're up on that cap. You're 4,000 feet elevation. And if it gets past them Rockies, here it comes, boy. It's coming right down on you. And it's a long ways from where I live, Yeah. A long ways.
That stuff's scary out in the panhandle of Oklahoma and Texas. It'll make you feel so small when you can see so far.
Oh, yeah.
it kind of freaks me out. My buddy Jake was like, I could never live out here. I'd feel just freaked out all the time. I could see so far.
That's what, when I moved to Georgia, I moved in 90, went to work out there for NutraSweet. And I mean, first couple, 3 months, I thought, well, is this because I left Texas? I'm not supposed to be out of Texas, you know. But I had this feel like I was confined, you know. Well, you know what it was? Well, I couldn't see.
Yeah.
You get right down the road, you got pine trees like this. You couldn't see the forest for the trees. The only time I felt, get my breath was when I was on a highway. I could see about a mile or two ahead of me. I finally realized that's what it was. It's just different. I was used to being able to see everywhere, you know.
Right.
Them good folks out there, too. I enjoyed the Southeast.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Guys in Georgia, South Carolina, Alabama, Florida. Those boys, they're good boys, you know. They Southern folks. They good people. I enjoyed my time there, but I was ready to come back. You know, I was ready to come back to Texas. Chase rainbows, trying to make a living, you know, best I could. And I've been blessed somehow or another. Kid come from nothing and had some awful good jobs. And always had a chance to go up. And I took advantage of it. When I went to work for Celanese, you know, the only way to get in that plant's in operations. You don't work shift work. Yeah, I met my wife and quit in '83. She didn't have to live with a shift worker. They promoted me and gave me a daylight job. And before long, I'm in engineering. And the company was real good to me. They afforded me the luxury to learn and to study. They saw something in me. And hell, I pretty much taught myself mechanical engineering.
Right.
I've had an engineering background my whole life. I taught myself vibration analysis, rotor dynamics, acoustical pulsation dampening. It was math, you know. It was math. I got it figured, you know. But yeah, boy, there was a bunch of outlaws at that plant. That Bishop plant right there. Oh man, they were all doing it, you know. Like I said, in those days, it's just a way of life, you know. But that had to change because they's going to have to make some money, and that's how they made their money. That's how they make the money now, is off those deer hunts, you know.
Right.
Paying that. I think they said, this was probably 15, 16 years ago, that they were paying $10 an acre for, you know, trespass fee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, you know, Jerry Jones owned the Cowboys. He got 100,000 acres. That's $1 million. Well, that's chump change to him.
Right.
It don't mean nothing to him. You know, $1 million. Yeah, I'll lease that place. That's who gets to hunt them deer. It's not us hunters. The sad thing is, you know, we are hunter-gatherers. I mean, that's the way we came into this earth, you know. Actually, when we developed and we went into agriculture, that's when we went down. Hell, our diets went to hell.
Yeah.
It just went south. You know, what do you grow? Oh, we grow rice. Oh, you're lucky you get 3 bowls of rice a day, huh? When boy, you was out there picking mushrooms and you was catching critters to eat and everything else, berries, everything growing. Much better, you know, diet.
Yeah.
You know, we did this to ourselves.
Have you heard about the carnivore diet? Mm-mm. There's this diet it was kind of a fad, but it's getting really popular now. It's basically going back and eating like mostly meat is what the diet is. It doesn't have to just be red meat. It can be chicken or turkey or whatever, fish. But people are seeing tremendous health benefits from eating this carnivore diet. It's basically just taking out all the processed crap, all the sugars, all those sorts of things, and just going back to meat and crap that grows out of the earth, just greens. And I've been eating that way for like a month now. I'm getting shredded doing this diet. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you think about it, it's like, well, this is how we've always eaten. This is how we should eat.
That's how we should eat.
Yeah. Now, the American diet's so modified into processed food and everything, but it's like, what a better diet than a wild game diet and just throw some greens in there. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's crazy how complicated we've made all this.
Exactly. I was talking about my mama, going to be 100 this year.
Yeah.
She went through the Great Depression. And she'll tell you right now, we had it better than anybody. Because we had a farm. We could grow our vegetables, and they raised chickens and turkeys and pigs. Now, she went 5 years, they didn't eat any beef, because that's the only way Grandpa could make any money was to sell a beef cow to somebody that had some money. So they didn't eat beef. But these people all lived in their 90s and stuff, you know?
Right.
Because they weren't eating processed food. And, you know, if they put it in a jar, they'd put it in there. They didn't put no preservatives in it. They cooked it and they put it in there themselves. They didn't have all those chemicals and stuff we got in our diets now. So it makes a lot of sense. You're getting back to being more like, you know, what we were originally designed to do. You know?
I agree. There's one story in the book that was really interesting to me, and it's the one, I think it was when you were writing the book, you're talking to some old man, you're trying to get this information out of him about how he used to hunt, outlaw hunting, and he just whispered to you a number. Do you remember that? Can you give us a little sneak peek? And I talked to my buddy Jake about this, who hadn't read the book, and he was like, there's no way that's true. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Now, you talk about the gun, the 25-20, how many was killed with it, or how about that one man, how many he had killed personally?
In a single season. Yeah.
Well, that's David. And baby, I tried, and this man, as far as I know, he's still alive. He's in very, very bad shape. He's in his 80s. I wanted to come over there and record him, and you know, because he could tell stories from now on. But that's what he said. And I was talking to him. His short-term memory he's getting real bad. I was talking to him on the phone. Hell, he'd forget who I was, and he'd get him going again. And then it just got real quiet. And he said, 56. I said, 56 what? That's the most I killed in 1 year. 56 deer. But they were getting after it, you know. And those guys, they did not sell that meat. I don't know any of those guys that ever did that. They killed them deer. They either ate them or they gave that meat to somebody that needed it. You know, I never heard of anybody selling meat. I wouldn't put up with it. You know, that's wrong. You know, but yeah, that was nothing for them to kill 35, 40 a year. You know, because that's when they were getting after it. I never killed that many. The first couple of years, Ellis kept me pretty busy. Yeah. That old man, I don't know how many deer I drug off that ranch for him. But I imagine we was probably killing 18, 20 a year, you know. So in 5 years, I'd probably got close to killing 100, you know.
You personally?
No, I mean.
With everyone?
Yeah, me and the guys I was hunting, right? I didn't drop the hell. Ellis wouldn't let me shoot. That dadgum guy, you know. But yeah, like I said, he had a bloodlust. But I didn't drag for him just a couple years, then I was off. Me and Wayne go hunting. And wasn't. By the time Charlie got there, I was with Fred then, and then that was the combo. They didn't have a Chinaman's chance in hell to catch Fred and I.
Why's that?
Because he was the best there was. He's a wheel man. That's what we used to call a driver. And he's got more senses than you do.
To me, that's the scariest position.
He's got a sixth sense. And I have seen him save our butt before. I write a story about it, the neck hair sticking straight out in his back. I'd seen him. I went, what's wrong? Something ain't right. Something ain't right. First curve, here comes game warden. It's like he just sensed the thing. And when I teamed up with him, of course, you know, he was a wheel man. I was over the fence. In those days, there was no way they were going to catch me on foot. There just was no way. You know, unless they could run like a deer and jump like a gazelle, I'd lose them. And I mean, I'd go through them quick. So I felt safe with him. And we just had it down to a science. And then the technology broke. I shot a little old YouTube thing about it. Fred called me and said, man, I need some meat. He had 3 big old boys, man. They eat a hindquarter one setting, you know. Right. So I need some meat. I said, come on, let's go. And he jumped in a truck with him, and we went out 285, and I wasn't paying no attention, you know. And I said, well, let's just make the road, make sure it's clear, and then we'll hide the gun. We'd hide the gun before you start throwing a spotlight. Because you get caught with a spotlight and a gun, then you're dead meat.
Put 2 and 2 together.
Yeah, you can't have a gun and a light where deer are known to roam. So we hide the gun, and then we get ready to spotlight. We pull over there, waiting for a little clearing traffic, And I was looking out, man, that's a fancy CB you got there, Fred. He said, ain't no CB. I said, what the hell is that? He said, that's a police scanner. I said, what are you talking about? He said, oh, no, we can hear them. How you do that? He said, turn it on. He turned that thing on. He knew a guy that worked at Radio Shack and knew every number, every crystal, forever. We had 4 sheriff departments, county sheriff departments. We had King Ranch Security. We had game wardens. We had a highway patrol. We could listen to them. Well, we're sitting, that's the first night I was with him in that thing. He was sitting in that thing that's going off, and about that time, man, I heard it. They're heading west on 141. Well, that's 20 miles north of us, We got to get some sheriffs coming up from south and north, cut them off. We'll catch them, when they, 141, 281. I said, Fred. He goes, yep, they got after him. And then I heard somebody else come on, sound like Butch Thompson. Well, he was the head of King Ranch Security. Yeah, we're behind you. Pretty soon, here comes game ward. Yeah, we're heading west too. And I'm sitting there with a Fred. I said, hell, Fred, this is cheating. Good grief. We know exactly where they're at. He's just over there just chuckling like this. He's just laughing. I said, that this ain't right, Fred. That this ain't fair. But that's also, when I saw that, I saw it's all going to change. I kind of look into the future a little bit. I was going, no, we're going to have to quit doing this stuff because it ain't going to be long. Everybody will have the same thing, But it was, I don't know, it was that same season or something. We was riding down the road, a game warden pull us over because we were probably sitting there looking something too long. He pulled up beside us and he walked up there and he saw that scanner. Oh, man, that guy got mad. He just red in the face, And he asked Fred, well, Chris, you got all of them. just kind of dig it in. Just dig it in a little bit. But it was a game with them guys out. Even I remember Ellis Mayfield and Wayne telling a story of Harvey Shane. Game warden there. He was a good guy. Everybody liked him. Now, he'd try to catch you. But it's kind of hard when there's 4 or 5 of them and just one of you. And one day, he pulled them over. And it was, getting close to being the right time to be hunting in the evening, And he walked over there and he said, you boys out here doing it again. They just wouldn't even talk to him, He said, what time is it? 5 o'clock. Yeah, I'm off duty. He opened the back door, got in the car, he said, give me a beer. He said, if I can't catch you, I'll just keep you from killing them. I'll sit here and drink your beer. Harvey got to be too good friends with the hunters, and they finally had to move him out. Oh, my God. But I said it was a game, It wasn't serious like it is now. Because it didn't have nothing to do with money. It was just a way of life. It was just food. Now, if you got somebody willing to pay $20,000, $30,000 to kill a dang deer, holy mackerel. No wonder they're watching like they do, Yeah. And, I'm glad I'm done with it, But I had a decade of doing stuff that nobody else ever going to get to do. It was just lucky. Like I've told you, I said, I'm a lucky guy. Things happen to me in my life. Doors get opened up and I go through. And when that was happening, that's when I met my bride, And I kind of had to make a decision. I said, well, I keep on. I got done just like Charlie. Just kept on and going, I said, no, it's time to stop this stuff. I said, that's a good woman there. If you're going to ever have a family, that's the kind of woman you want to be your mother, your children. Right. And I said, I don't think I'm going to let this one get away, Yeah. And I was like, she said yes. And I just stopped dead still. Just like when I lost weight, I just plant my foot and just go the other way. And that's what I did. It just, it was time. And, I feel very fortunate to have lived in that era and got to see that and got to do that. And I know it's, now it's the worst sin in the world, but back then it wasn't. It was just a damn game and the way we got our meat, It was a lot of fun. But, it's a time going past, and I don't want anybody ever to go out there and try to do that stuff now, man. That's just, it ain't worth it.
No.
Not even a little bit. I met some guys here. It was the last season. I was trying to gig some flounder. And I come out, and this young guy, and they're flounder guides. They have a real fancy boat and stuff. And I just started shooting breeze with them or something, because hell, I'll talk to a stranger anytime, It turned out these guys read Charlie's book.
Really?
Yeah. He said, have you ever seen this book? And I said, I got a handwritten copy of it. It's probably 15 years old. You know the guy? I said, oh, yeah. I said, matter of fact, I'm in that story right there. I think the runaway truck, or what's it called, Bit of Luck, on a nail guy. He's got a long name for that story. On mine, I call it Runaway Truck Revisited? Yeah. No, it was Antelope Trip was revisited. But I just kind of added into it. He couldn't believe that I knew him. He said, man, that guy's famous. I said, he's character, I'll tell you that. But he was telling me that they were doing it. He said they were going in night vision goggles and infrared scopes, cutting them damn high fences, cutting and crawling in them, going in there and kill a deer and come out. I just said, boys, man. I mean, I'm not the kind of guy going to tell another man what to do. I was raised in that era when you didn't do that, But I said, boys, you run a risk it ain't worth it, man. It just ain't worth it, But we don't do it much, but when we think we can get away with it, man, you're gambling. Because you ruin your life. It'll follow you the rest of your life. Your felony would, It just ain't worth it, man.
Yeah, it's crazy how much it's changed. There was a freaking world-class deer shot around up where I live, I think pretty close to Coffeyville. They weren't sure if it was over the state line in Kansas or Oklahoma. And we all saw the deer, and there was some weird situation where he said he'd shot it with his bow, and he ended up shooting it with a muzzleloader or something at night or something, and all of a sudden you just see this rack of the deer on the ODWC Facebook page and website, and all of a sudden his photos he has with the deer are being deleted off his Facebook and stuff, and it's just like, I think they took his truck. I think they fined him $20-something thousand. I mean, took the deer. The deer belongs to the state now. All that over a deer. There's not a big enough deer for me.
And if you'd seen what Fred and I used to do, because he had them 3 boys. We'd go kill a deer, maybe 2. Go back to his house, hang them up, skin them out, saw the horns off. And like I said, we didn't kill little ones. We killed some good deer. You know where they went?
Where's that?
The horn pile, right next to the burn barrel on the north side of the property. Let the rats eat them. How many do you need to hang your hats on? I've never had a house big enough to put all the deer in there I killed. Neither did Fred. We just sawed them off, throwed them over there. And believe me, people go out there and come get them. People put them on a plaque. I've heard stories of some taxidermists going through those piles.
Really?
To resell them. But, 23, 24-inch buck, maybe 10, 12 points. Just throw that thing over there. Like I said in the book, Ernesto Barrera, he taught me, he says, you can boil them for 2 days. They won't make good soup. They just won't make good soup,
How many deer do you think you got in that decade personally?
Me actually dropping a hammer on them? Oh, I don't know.
Dozens?
Didn't get, more than that, yeah. I don't know. Shouldn't count. I after the first couple of years, and I was dragging, pretty much after that, I was doing all the shooting. I was a pretty good shot. And Wayne said, hey, you should shoot him, you don't miss, I don't know. 150, maybe.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I'd probably 150. I figured that, and ones I probably drug 200 off that, altogether.
You've drug. It's interesting to me that you guys. Where did the golden rule come from? Because Charlie doesn't operate by that rule.
Oh no, that was Uncle Zenas. That's Uncle Zenas, and that's what he taught Wayne. And that was God put that animal there for us to eat. He didn't put that animal there for you to kill it and feed it to a damn coyote. You get the meat out, or don't kill it. I could hear that man saying that right now. That's just the way it was. And when Charlie and I met, of course, I knew what he was doing. But like I said, back in those days, a man didn't tell another man what he's supposed to be doing or not doing. You just kept that to yourself.
Yeah.
It's changed a lot. I said, it's not the world, it's people. People's changed, But you just didn't do that, And you kept your mouth shut and you just went on about your business, But when that bunch up there, I call them the Bishop Bandits, and that's what Charlie will call them. And then, of course, Charlie and his buddy George Moore, and those guys, they got serious, Bubba. And they was hunting the best place they could get into, too, But they jumped a few of them. They just hadn't been in there. Like when Robert East, Charlie tells you, I ain't never go back in there Robert East again. And what they used to hunt, you hear them talk about the Piloncilla. And that's out west. It's not even on my map. It's further out west towards the river. Well, the Piloncilla is now called the Shell Harrison. And, dude, I don't imagine Fort Knox is guarded as well as that place is.
Really? Oh,
it's unbelievable, man. My nephew goes out there with a crane doing work, the oil field stuff. He's telling a story. He said one of his crane operators were switching shifts. And he'd go through all that rigmarole. There's a sign. If you have a cigarette lighter, if they catch you with a cigarette lighter, a match, or anything, you're off for life. No tobacco product, no nothing. Nothing. You're off for life. And they got whacking huts out there. Security. And this old boy driving into the rig, he had a heart attack and died. Drove off the road into the brush till the truck stopped. His car stopped. And my nephew said it took him a month to get that car out of there. All the red flipping tape and stuff. But Shell paid the Harrisons $1 billion for that new kind of oil they're finding out there, And it's a place you need to leave alone. Because their deer there, oh my gosh. It's like the Briscoe. It's 650,000 acres. Heck, it goes across 8 counties. It's a big place, man. Some of them are huge out there. Those deer, there's not as many, but they're bigger.
Why is it that you think South Texas is such a mecca for deer hunting? Just for not only in numbers, but buck to doe ratio, antler size. It's just what are the factors that make it just such a special place?
Well, it is special, but it's really not.
If
you think about, look at the dang deer. The deer in Kansas are bigger than the deer in Texas. Further you go north, they're bigger. Now, you want to see some heavy deer? Look at those deer come out of Saskatchewan. Look at the mass on them things. The Texas whitetail is a smaller animal. And so his horns, when they get out there 21, 22, boy, they look like there's something because it's a big, difference.
Right.
And I think that's a lot of it. But the fact they have such huge acreages, and the numbers can get so high, and that's why the buck-doe ratio, of course, is good. And when they'll come to horns and stuff where they don't in other parts. I've tried to rattle in other parts of the country where there wasn't very much. Like in South Carolina, you better off blowing a grunt, than you would be rattling horns, But, yeah, it's just cause all those great big huge ranches and there's just all that unknown out there and vast acreages, and that's what the lure is, I would think. But after you stomped across it a few times, you don't really want to. Like I said, I'm done with it. I just, it was fun back then, but it's not worth going to prison for or jeopardizing my family, and it's not something I want my grandsons to pick up. I tell them, You know, I've told them the truth. I don't lie to them kids, you know. But, you know, they've got chances to hunt in places, and, you know, and they've all both killed them a deer now, you know, and they're tickled. They're fired up now, you know. And that's great. And that's that natural desire for us to, you know, to hunt. And we were just built into us. But I wanted to do it legally, you know. I didn't have anybody tell me no. Matter of fact, the person above me was going, let's go. So, yeah, it was a whole different thing. I wouldn't take my kids to do it, that's for sure. And I'd get on to them if I ever heard them doing that. And it's a different time. And it was just a different time. And I just fortunate enough to that little section of time. And you think about my career and Charlie's. I mean, hell, he went on for a long time. You know,
yeah.
Man, he got caught 15 years after I quit. I mean, I was done with it. I knew he was getting bad. You know, and seeing they got that Operation Game Thief. We went through that, seeing what happened then. And, well, LBA crooked letter. You know who he is, don't you?
No, who are you referring
Captain High Fence.
Okay.
Lee Bass, richest man in Texas, stuff right there. Well, in 1986, he became the commissioner of Parks and Wildlife. Now, who was governor? Oh, George. Why, fellow billionaire like me, you're doing a great job at Parks and Recreation. Just keep that job. He was there 12 years. High Fences just jumped up everywhere. Look at all the property he has. Hell, he even owns Barrier Island.
Really?
Now, how does he do that? You know where Port Aransas is? In the beach, okay? And there's a set of jetties. Well, on the north side of the jetties, that's St. Joe's Island. Guess what? He owns half of it. I used to paddle across on my surfboard and go surfing over there. I was trespassing. Didn't even know it.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm a little bit older than Lee. I think he's 65. His story's in there. It's kind of cute. You probably get going pretty good, you know. Someday when you're 3 years old and somebody give you, in 1959, him and his three brothers got $2.8 million apiece.
That'll get you started.
Yeah, that's like, then that was like $50 million. And he was in three-corner diapers. Yeah, he's a philanthropist. But he was there running that thing when all these high fences were going up and doing all that and changing these laws and getting them worse and worse and worse. Hell, you check now. He is the Commissioner Emeritus. I guess that means forever, huh?
I guess.
But they got a new commissioner now, the guy that owns Buc-ee's.
Oh, really?
That's what I heard. I think he's the new Parks and Wildlife commissioner. I wish him well. You know, like I said, there's things they could do. You know, I'd just like to see them have some places for people to go where they could hunt and stuff. Hey, you can't even hardly fish anymore. You know, unless you got a boat, everything's bought up. You can't have private property. You know, and it wasn't like that when I was a kid. You know, and I feel sorry for younger people today because they didn't get to see what I got to see when it was just wide open. You know.
Yeah, the Texas system's kind of weird. Like coming from Oklahoma, obviously there's some areas they'll shut down for controlled hunts and stuff, like for a small period of time. But any other time, it's open to bow only or rifle hunting or whatever. You come to Texas in Austin, I drew like a 3 hour circle around Austin, and there wasn't a single place I could hunt that I had to draw out for, and I wasn't a single place I could go bow hunt. And everyone is asking me, everyone I live, why do you drive up to Oklahoma? Why do you do all this? And I'm like, well, I can't afford a lease. I can't pay $5,000, and they tell me I can shoot one buck and one doe. Mm-hmm. Okay, then I'm gonna put $1,000 in corn and all these other sort of things. Okay, so I can't get a lease, and there ain't a place within 3 hours for me to hunt. What's stopping me from driving 2 more hours and hunt where I want to?
Exactly.
Where I can hunt whatever I want. Mm-hmm. And people say, oh, well, Texas has almost 1 million. Over in West Texas, they do. It's something I'm never going to touch. That's an 8-hour drive for me.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of a junky system, in my opinion. It really stinks for the public land hunter. There's not much for you.
There is none. I'm telling you, the few places they've got, I've even tried it. I remember back in the 70s, we'd go to the Aransas Wildlife Refuge. And Bubba, They got mosquitoes there as big as B-52s, buddy. And the only way you can get away from them is to get up on a ladder about 10 foot off the ground, and then they'll leave you alone. And there's a lot of deer there, but they're so hid until right at dark, and they'll go right out to the point, right at the bayfront where the wind's blowing in, and just sit there and quiver, shake the mosquitoes off of them. I said, I don't want any venison that bad. I ain't going back in that damn place. Yeah. And the very next day, they shut the whole thing down. Because here come the whooping cranes. You know, them dumb ones that won't sit on their own eggs, so they got to put them under sandhill cranes. And we're going to spend millions to kind of keep them alive. And it's another one of those, 25 species a day vanishes off this earth. It's pretty arrogant of us to think we're going to keep that bird alive, regardless. Ah, come on, man. Yeah, they shut everybody down. Because here come the birds early. There's not much of anything. And besides, they use Texas over there in the big thicket. But I wouldn't go over there with a rifle. There ain't no way. I love him Texas boys from East Texas, but them are rednecks.
Yeah.
Oh, they'll take sound shots. Oh, I heard it. I shot twice over there, No, I ain't going in that pine thicket. Not me. I'd safe right in the middle of King Ranch. Yeah, I just had to let it go. That's one of the things I've always wanted to go to Africa. But guess what? You're hunting high fences there too.
Is that right?
Well, of course it is. A blue wildebeest and a black wildebeest do not live in the same country. One does mountains, one does plains. You kill them both on the same piece of property? Well, guess what? They were put there. I mean, how are you going to get all those critters in one place? Most of those places, they're high fence too, in some degree or another, And so I've lost interest in that, I'd rather go up north somewhere, Alaska, British Columbia, Saskatchewan. Hunt something truly wild and just something, we got a challenge again, It's, to me, that was the fun, was the challenge, Of course, it wasn't hard to kill them deer down on King Ranch. There's so many of them, but to go in, beat some horns, pick you out a good one, get him, bone him out, get out there with him. Yeah, it's just kind of put a little bounce in your step. Oh, I won that again, But it was not ill content, feel ill will towards them, nothing. It was just way of life. It really was. It was just a way of life. That's the way we fed each other. And not a lot to do down there.
Not much else.
There ain't much else, man. There ain't much. We'd figure out something to do. Go sit out there at the dipping vat. Everybody bring a 6-pack of beer, sit out there at the dip vat, talk. But usually we come in and do something. We get ourselves liquored up, then we go do something stupid, Yeah. So that wasn't a good idea. Chase jackrabbits on motorcycles or four-wheelers, They're coyotes, that's fun too. Get two guys on a motorcycle and chase coyotes out in the plowed field. It takes two of them. Guy's pretty good on a bike. That coyote, he's quick,
Yeah, for sure.
But you can run them down until they can't go no more. We caught deer like that. There's an old boy that's got a place there that years ago, that's what we were doing. We was catching deer out there on the pea fields. And we tie him up and take him to his place, turn him loose. He's got 160 class deer at his place now. And like my nephew and them boys that were combining, see, they combine, by July. Well, that's when they're fawning. You run along through that grain and you see a doe jump up above it, you're fixing to run over a fawn. Because that fawn's laying right there. Because that's what he knows to do. And they get out there and they get him and catch him. And now, so man, he had 3 daughters. They bottle feed them things, get them up and turn them loose. They got deer all over their place now. And they're all just caught, picked up around different places like that. It's just something to do.
Yeah.
I guess now they probably get you in trouble for that too. But that was always fun. We can't sell wild game as a citizen, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's against the law.
Yeah.
Then why is it a landowner can sell that deer for somebody to shoot?
And there's not a season on it either, is there?
I mean, I'm just saying, I don't understand it. If you're a landowner, then you don't have to abide by the laws. You can't sell meat. I guess you can. See, that was all that 1983 stuff when they did that and they transferred ownership.
Yeah.
It was all about money. It's just all about money, trying to keep those places together. Because, most of that country down there is natural gas. There's not a lot of oil. And there's not as much money in it as there is. But believe me, and you got as much as they did, that's plenty. They had plenty of money, But it's just growed up. It's unbelievable. That country out west of Fremont Foul out there now is so growed up. All those little places are gone. People can't make a living on them anymore. The brush growed up. Those places that never was any deer, they're loaded with them now. They're all over the place out there. I can't believe it. I took a drive out there. Took my mom out for a ride one day. I said, I just want to see what the country looks like. It's been so many years, so I looked at it. God, dang, couldn't even recognize it growed up so much, But I can also remember back in the 70s, too, when the ranch would chain that brush, You got 2 D9s, the biggest chain you ever saw in your life stretched in between them, and they just dragging that brush down right during fawn season. You don't think they kill some deer?
I'm sure.
Yeah, they don't give a damn about them damn deer. They're trying to open up some pasture land. Like I said, they work for them. They work for the ranch. They work for us.
Yeah.
That's another point. You think about that. Texas is 95% private. Okay? And how is Texas Parks and Wildlife funded? Well, they're funded by taxation, our licenses, our fishing. Everything sporting goods got a tax goes to Parks and Wildlife. Right? And what is their job? To protect the landowner's deer? Why the hell ain't the landowner paying for the Texas Parks and Wildlife? Why am I paying for it? They ain't got no skin in the game. They just got the money. See what I mean? Operation Game Teeth. They changed the whole narrative. And just said, well, these are the bad guys over here. These are the bad guys. Well, come on. Where are you on Sunday morning? You go to church on Sunday morning? We ain't bad people. It's just it was a way of life back then. It was just completely different than it is now. It's fun talking about it to somebody like you, or anybody, on a podcast like that, but it's gone. I mean, it ain't never going to be like that again. And please don't hate me for it. I just want to share what little bit of fun I had, because I'm done. I'm done. But writing that book was a whole bunch of fun. As here come that pandemic, right? And I'm retired. My wife's still working. Oh, it wasn't long she had work from home. Well, her job is like a reality TV show. And I can't watch it, okay? I had to get out of the house. I got me a little wood shop. That's my fun. I like to build furniture and stuff out of wood. Well, this lockdown kept going on. I ran out of wood. So what the hell am I going to do now? So I took that laptop out there to that shop. I sat under my recliner and I started writing. And everybody's been telling me, you need to write a book. You need to tell them stories. So it's like Charlie said, I ain't read your book. I said, why the hell would you, Charlie? You've heard every dadgum story in there. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like me reading his book, you know. I've heard them over and over again, Right. It's fun to be able to share them with other people. And it's not like, we're trying to brag or nothing. There was a different time. And it was a lot different. And it's changed. And I just know how it changed and why it did. And just tried to share that a little bit. I don't have any animosity towards anybody or anything. And I don't expect anything from anybody. I just want to tell a story and tell the truth. You know? And truth, how that all came about, and especially that country down there, because that's where my soul heart is. I like those people. They simple, good people. They But they're just about all gone, you know. It's just drying up down there, you know. And those little towns like Fremont and Fowl, they used to be a bustling little old place. Well, they've already bypassed Foul Furious, you know. And now the bypass is coming around Fremont, yeah. And those two places, you know, after the old timers go and stuff, it's going to be gone.
Right.
It's just dried up, blow away. But they were good little communities back then, and good people. And how they got that many characters in one place, I don't know. It's like they put out a sign. If you got a sense of humor, come, you move here. Because they had some characters down there. You get with those old timers we talk about, those old days, we used to call them pachangas. And you go out there to somebody's place, and they build a fire and put a grill down, throw some meat, and drink some beer, and start telling stories.
Yeah.
And dadgum, them old timers. There was a guy named Austin Brown and old man Disbro. I seen them one night. They had us all on the ground holding our sides, just laughing. They're just hilarious. The guys had more character than any 5 people I ever met in my life, you know. It's just a tough country. I guess it just kind of made it out of them, you know.
Right.
Yeah. But it was good time. It's nothing like it now. But that's what I wanted to do, is just, you know, like I said, I wanted to share that with people who's interested, because it was a different time. But I wanted people to know, too, do not go out there and try to do this. That's so many years ago, and man, you can get yourself in some trouble that you ain't never going to get out of.
Right.
And it is not worth it, you know. If you want to hunt and you can't afford a lease or something like that, well, save your dollars up and go make you a trip every other year someplace. You know, and go someplace where you can really hunt and get, you know, and get, you know, have a good time and not run a risk of putting yourself behind 8 ball for the rest of your life. Just ain't worth it. Like I said, if I get a chance to go again, I'm gonna go to Coffeyville. That's where I want to go.
Up there.
I want to go that farm up there and try to take one on the old lane place. I never seen a deer there in my life. Of course, I hadn't been there since I was 12 either, you know. But I talked to my cousin in Florida, and he's got half of it. And I'm sure he'd let me go. Have to put up with his sister, though. They don't even get along.
That's fun. So can you talk a little bit about, I believe it's your daughter, and in the back of the book, what you talk about a little bit of the proceeds going to. Can you talk about that just for a little bit?
Yeah, that's very important to me, and I appreciate you doing that.
Yeah.
My niece, Haley, is nonverbal autistic. She's 40, almost 41 years old now. And that's when that, you know, it came to our family, you know. And she lives with my sister and my mama. And she's older than both my girls. So both my girls, you know, grew up seeing that. Well, obviously it did something. It was a good Lord or what, but it took Ashley by storm. She dedicated her life to it. She loves those kids and works with them every day. And I want to try to help her keep that school alive, because she has the Oasis Academy, and for kids, you know, with special needs, and then her foundation. And she did it all by herself. You know, this is her dream and this is her passion, and guess what? I'm her daddy and I'm gonna help her. You know? But we have a dream together we'd like to see happen. And it hits home again. You see, my sister's 77 years old. You know, and what's going to happen to those kids with special needs? They're not kids anymore, they're grown people.
Right.
But they outlive their caregiver. You know what I mean? Ashley and I would love to start a place, a true oasis for people like that. You know, that they've outlived their caregivers. Somebody still got to take care of them. And just giving them to the state ain't you know, it's not what I want to see done, you know. I know enough about autism that I know, even with my niece being unable to communicate, she's still in there.
Right.
Oh, she just too many times I've seen her cut her eye at me and stuff, and I go, you dick. I know they're there, it's just they can't communicate. And I said, she gave me an office there and I use that, to mail my books and stuff out, because I do it all myself. But I'm gonna donate to that and keep that thing alive as long as we can, because that's her dream, and I think it's a good thing to do.
Yeah.
That's a cruel disease. It's right. It's like Alzheimer's almost took. Old people that just steal their mind from them. Well, how about your whole life you can't communicate? Ah, you imagine it's terrible. We did. There's a picture in the back on that page. It was 2019. We did a mission. We went to Ghana, Africa. And she did. She planned all that. She met this guy online. He's a daggum, same like her. His name's Patrick Akufu. And he has a nonprofit. All he does is give, goes all over that country and helps, And we went over there to go to their school to help them, There's 150 kids in that compound. Half of them had Down syndrome. They weren't autistic. They just put them all together. They've never been clinically diagnosed. They don't know what's what. But I tell you what, those weeks we spent over there, that changed my life a lot. It just, if that don't soften you up, nothing will. And those people over there. So, of all the countries I've been in, and I've been in quite a few, Ghana is special. I'm telling you, I don't care if you're in a city, a community, or a village. Those people, they think they're blessed, and they're going to bless you too. Oh yeah. Now they all got a cell phone. But they live, their culture and their faith is one and the same. They're beautiful people. Good grief, they're just so giving and so warm and everything. The girls wanted to get African dresses made because there was 2 other women with us. And so we go to the market and they pick out their stuff. And I'm always security seat, I lost the fear the first day I was there.
Yeah.
These people were so kind. And I'm in this market and they're looking at that loud material, and I see this young fella bouncing down the street. And he had happiness in every step, boy. I'd say he's about 15 years old. And just smiling and waving at everybody, and then I saw that damn t-shirt. And you know what's on his t-shirt?
What's that? Always
think of the woman first. I said, to hell, we're not in America. I know that right now, But that's always think of the woman. Isn't that beautiful?
It is.
When we flew out and we went to London for a couple of days, the first shirt I saw a guy had on, Chairman, Anti-Social Social Club. I said, yeah, we're back home again. But I wanted to go to Africa all my life. I went, never killed a thing, didn't bother me a bit, Didn't really see anything to kill.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of fun, and I learned a lot. When my daughter decided she was going to do that, she was taking 2 mothers of children. These mothers have special needs kids. It's just 3 women going to Ghana together. My wife and I are sitting there looking at each other, and this dog ain't gonna hunt. She said, you got a passport, you're going. So I went as chief of security, but like I said, first day I was there, I just lost that fear. People are beautiful people there, just very sweet. He took us all around, but that was a great thing. And so that's, like I said, that's one of the things with the book I want to do. I want to, I'd like to raise as much money as I could to help her foundation.
Yeah.
But long term, It's going to take some big money people, you know, to buy into that too, but that's what we need, the funds. It's tough enough to find people that'll do that work. Yeah, I mean, that little girl of mine gets up every day and just can't wait to get there. You know, I mean, she's got something special in her heart. You know?
Right.
And, man, I'm around there every day and stuff, but there's a limit to how much of it I can take. It hurts me. I feel sympathetic, and you don't want to do that to those kids. You know, you want to interact with them and stuff so they get used to knowing what that's all about. You know.
Yeah.
And I've seen her make some significant differences in some of those kids' lives, and so I know it can be done. And just finding the right people that'll do that kind of work. And there's getting more and more of them all the time. You think about, like I said, a home for people that special needs that outlive their caregivers, that number gets bigger every day. Mm-hmm. We're seeing billionaires that wake up in the morning trying to make another billion. I wish they'd just give some of that to somebody that wanted to do something good for some folks. Wouldn't that be great?
Be awesome.
Sure would. That's what I'd like to see happen. But that, and my boy, Charlie, I wanted to validate him. Now, there's so many people say, man, the way that guy did that. Oh, yeah, he did. Oh, yeah, he did. That 27-day hunt? I said, buddy, I've been in that country, all over it. I got a feeling them boys that took down Osama bin Laden, one of them would rung the bell. And he said, I'm going out of here. I ain't staying 27 days. I don't think SEAL Team 6 could have hung with him. Because he'd go like a wild man. You know, he'd just get going. Living on nothing but meat, whatever you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was something else, man. He is something else. Just hope he gets over his sickness, his illness, you know. Give him some of his life back, because he's been sick for a long, long time.
Yeah.
But like I said, the boy's given me more than I've ever given him. So I'll always be in his corner, you know. Yeah, and I didn't agree with, you know, the way he hunted and what he did. I couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. But we didn't judge one another. You know what I'm saying? Back in those days, you just, you know, by golly, you just didn't do that kind of stuff, you know. We had so much in common that we did do, you know. Because I loved his work. I loved taxidermy. I could hang out there all day long, you know.
Right.
And we'd play a little golf together, or we'd go fishing. Well, we tore them redfish up on that in the flats. Ooh, we had a lot of fun together. Shoot birds. He'd get to bragging on me then. Hey, Pat, you're the best wing shot in the whole world. I'm pretty good, but I ain't that good. But he got to hunt on my dog, and I had the best dog there ever was. Old Scooter was something else, man. I remember we was hunting one day, and Charlie, I said, you don't shoot, you can eat it. We was walking out there going to the fence line, wait for the birds to start flying. Here comes my lark. Pow! You're gonna eat that. Okay. He picked it, breast it, put it in his back. Took about 15 more steps and woodpecker. Pow! Well, you're eating that woodpecker too. It's okay. He said, I'm gonna eat that heart right now. And he just pulled it down and ate it. I go, okay. You can't turn him, you know? Yeah. We got out there shooting birds, and we had 4 birds come over top of us. And it was just a perfect setup. And I mean, Charlie and I, boom, 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 4, 2 doubles. And old Scooter, he'd pick a bird up, come back, took my hand. I didn't say nothing. He went and got all 4 of those birds. And Charlie, damn. I said, yeah, that's a good dog right there, buddy.
Yeah.
But I lived with that dang dog. I mean, he was my best friend, you know, and he could speak 2 languages. I used to mess with him all the time. Had a good buddy of mine named Danny Navarre, Hispanic fella. He worked at Sally's, and the guy's got a hunting lease, shooting birds. He called me one day and said, hey man, Jingle Bang, you come up and bring your dogs? Sure, Danny, I'll come. So I loaded a couple of my labs up, took them out there. Man, I think Rip was down there at the tank or something. I said, get out, clean yourself out. And he'd get out and go poop and stuff and everything. I said, get yourself down there and help with Rip. And Danny was running the truck with me, you know, and he goes, that's him, isn't it? And I said, yeah, that's Scooter. Man, that's a beautiful dog. I said, he's a pretty dog. So I wanted to pet him. I said, don't do that, Danny. He said, why not? I said, the dog don't like Mexicans. What? I said, I'm sorry, Danny. And Danny, oh, you just messed me. He started Scooter, growling like that. And I said, Scooter, come over here, boy. Give me a little kiss. And he looked me on the face. I said, this is a good Mexican right here. He's a good friend of mine. And I want him to let you pet him now. So you go over there and let him pet you. And old Daddy's petting it. I said, you son of a bitch. I can't believe you teach that dog that. I said, that dog's smart. I teach him anything.
That's awesome.
He was a very good dog. And I'll never have another one. I never will. My wife's seen me cry twice in my life. And I cried worse over that dog than I did my dad. And I said, that's it. I ain't never going to have another dadgum dog get that attached to again. You know, he died before his time, got run over. And I haven't never had another one since. I couldn't stand it now. Because back in those days, I mean, we bird hunt every day during the season. And we hunted birds every day.
Yeah.
It was a social event. Back then we had CBs, and you get, some farmer or some old field guy who, where are we going to shoot bird today? I don't know, where are they at? Somebody's like, there's a lot of them over here, or some over here. And somebody finds, well, let's pick it. Let's take this, we're all going there. And you pull out there by 4 o'clock, there'll be 30 trucks. And I guarantee you, 2/3 of them never even got shotgun out. They're just drinking beer and padilla, cook some meat, just shooting a breeze. It's a social event.
Yeah.
That just meant I could kill twice as many birds. Because I give them their limits, But that was an everyday affair. Now you don't do that. It costs money to hunt. Everywhere, And it was a social event, We had a lot of fun. But like I said, people's changing.
They are.
Yeah, it's not the world. It's people.
So for people that really enjoyed the stories in the podcast, where can they pick up your book? Where can they connect with you?
Well, at the website, it's the same as the book. It's beforethestoriesarlost.com. And you can order right there on the website. And like I said, I got one retail outlet in the Wild Horse Desert. And that's between Foul Furious and Fremont. And that's my cousin Brian Hornbys at the Texas Grub Wagon. And he sold a lot of books there too. But I wanted it to be available for those locals there. I did. I just wanted them to have that book because it's their story. They know that stuff in there is true. They know all about that stuff, the way it was back then. The ones that are still alive. It's harder for younger folks like yourself that, man, all this occurred way before you were even born, And it's just changed a bunch. But they're good folks down there. There's just not as many of them. It's places drying up and blowing away. But Brian, he's a hell of a cook. And if you're going down 281 and you get hungry, you don't stop at Texas Grub Wagon, you just screwed up. I tell you real quick about him. Now this is funny. When he went to cooking, he had a job on a drilling rig. Yeah, offshore. He's cooked on a drilling rig. They stay pretty busy. And those old boys pretty hard out there too. He's working his butt off one afternoon cooking, This guy comes in. What are you cooking, Dave? It's got steak and shrimp, sir. He said, make mine medium rare. Yes, sir. So he didn't even turn around and look at the fellow. When he got his meal fixed, he slid it down there to him. Guy went to eat. About halfway through that meal, he stopped. He said, son, you're too damn good a cook to be cooking for these rednecks and these, roughnecks out here.
Yeah.
How'd you like to have a job on my hunt lease? To give you suburban, we'll pay you this, and you can cook for us. Brian goes, that sounds like a hell of a deal. You know who that man was?
Who's that?
Dick Cheney.
Really?
He was still with Halliburton before he got into, politics with George Bush. Yeah. That's who got him off a drilling rig.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And he's cooked for some of the bigger places down there, He's just an awesome cook and just as good a person you ever want to meet. And of course, his daddy was my buddy. And that's him right there, isn't it?
Is it?
Yeah, that's him right there. That's Brian right there when he was 15 years old. We killed that nail guy together.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's a great man. Yeah, my nephews are all friends with him and stuff. So every time I go down there now, of course I see Mom, and of course he's selling some books for me and stuff too. But I wanted it to be good for both of us, So somebody look hunting the book and they're going there. Well, maybe they'll eat something, Or if they eat something, say, hey, you want to buy a book? I got your book. It'd just be good for each other.
Yeah.
And I put a little sign up there and everything. And I told him, I said, Brian, day comes a pain about, tell me, we'll take it down, But until then, we're just going to keep going on there because all the locals come there and got the book, And that's kind of made my heart sing too, Especially when he told me about Pete, Pete Hornsby going there and there's a sandwich and cops that book. And I know good well he's out there giving them somebody, And that made me feel real good.
Yeah.
Because their family to me, I I married into it. My mother married into it, but I think of them like family. I always have, And, they always treated me like I was one of them. But yeah, just go to the website, www.beforethestoriesarlost.com. And I'll get a book to you.
Cool. Well, I appreciate it, Pat. Thank you for coming on.
I very much appreciate you for offering. And maybe we get back someday and get Charlie in here together and Matt.
I think we'll do a little three-piece.
Man, that'd be some fun with some laser pointers. He could show you right where on the map because those maps are to scale.
Yeah.
And there's a hoop. Gonna get better. I'm gonna go see him tomorrow. So
That sounds
while I'm up here and check on him.